Hey, how's it going? And this video is just a kind of a quick look at understanding the simulation in the scene graph system. What's different about the scene graph is that traditionally when we're creating an Unreal editor, like let's say I'm working in here, and then I jump into Fortnite into the edit mode here, I don't see any functionality that I've created. I may see objects that I've placed in the scene, I might see the environment, but I don't see the code actually working. What's new about the scene graph is that it actually runs in edit mode and play mode. That's very different from how you might be accustomed to working in Unreal Editor. And one of the questions that I had and was confusing me was, when does the simulation start running? Because the simulation actually has a life cycle. There's like 6 stages to it. There's a initialize, add to scene, on begin simulation, on simulate, remove from scene, and uninitialize. So there's 6 stages, and a lot of that happens under the hood. You can add to it if you want, but it's kind of doing its own thing, those stages on its own. So right here, at this point, I've been jumping in and out of Unreal Editor into the Fortnite side, right? So here, the simulation has run, and you might ask, well, what is the simulation? And it's a very basic simulation. So what I have is I have 4 entities on the scene, in the scene right here, 4 entities, and they just have a transform component, a verse component essentially, and a mesh component. So, and then I've just duplicated the one cube, this one here, I just alt clicked and dragged and created 4 cubes. And what the logic is, the simulation is, after 35 seconds, the cubes turn off. They stop rendering. So these cubes are on the scene and then they disappear and they stop rendering. And that's all the simulation is. The cubes disappear. And so here we just see the cubes and nothing's running. I can't hit play here and nothing's going to happen here. What's happened now is if I go into Fortnite here on the client side, I'm in edit mode, but the simulation has already run. Even if I start the game now, it doesn't matter what I do. The simulation has already run. So unless it's an ongoing running simulation, if it's a timed simulation, in other words, it'll time out before you even start the game. So look, I go start the game. The simulation has already run. That's why you don't see the 4 blocks, because they were only on the screen for 35 seconds and then they turn off. Now, if I go escape and I get in the game, this is the interesting part. When I end the game, I trigger the life cycle again and the simulation runs again. It's counterintuitive because you're ending the game, but you're actually starting the simulation life cycle again. So I'm going to go in game, and there's the 4 cubes. You see them? Well, I went dark for a second. But see, look, if I back up, the simulation is running again. And what will happen is in 35 seconds, the cubes will go off the screen. And then it doesn't matter if I go back into play mode because the simulation has run its course. So it runs in edit mode and in play mode. It's very confusing. I'll show you something in just a second here once it goes off the, see how they went off the screen? Now I want to show you something that was a setting on here that was messing me up. Now even if I go start game, watch, I hit start game, there's no simulation, there's no cubes because it's already run. Now if I hit end the game, it will trigger the simulation to run again. So in other words, start game doesn't trigger the simulation to run. It runs in edit mode. But in-game will trigger the simulation to run. Isn't that interesting? I didn't know that. But I want to show you something too. There's a setting up here on the 3 dots, but that'll mess you up on your simulations. So I turned that off. So now I want to show you something. If we go into, let me click in-game here, and I go back into start. Now remember, this is a 35-second simulation, so if I hit start game, the simulation's still running. Now that I'm in play mode now, the simulation is still running. See how confusing it can be? So it can be absolutely confusing because you don't even know what's happening. You don't even know when the simulation is starting or ending or how it's operating. But I hope this sheds some light. So what'll happen is, see how they went off the screen? So just to summarize, the simulation starts as soon as you jump into edit mode. It may have already started. When you go into edit mode, you go into start mode, the game is still not going to start the simulation. You go into start, you end the game, that triggers the simulation. And then depending on the length of the simulation, it may time out in the edit mode. If it's a longer simulation, it may carry over into play mode when you go into play mode. So anyway, I hope you found this helpful. Take care, and I'll talk to you next time.